He shot my grandson, not 7 times, sweetie, 8. And then he took his body and threw it on the side of Suitland Parkway. And we had to look for my grandson. When we got back bones. It took us 9 months to find his remains, and we had to find his remains. We had to solve the case. We had to do the investigation. DC has had money to be able to do things like this until now. When someone is standing up and talking about it, then we want to raise our heads and say we want to do something. Something could have been done a long time ago.
8 bullets, 1 grandmother, and a city gripped by fear and frustration. This isn't Chicago or Baltimore. This is Washington, D.C., the seat of American power. But behind the monuments and political speeches, families are mourning, neighborhoods are on edge, and victims say their cries for justice are being drowned out by political debate. This week, a powerful testimony gripped Capitol Hill. Mrs. Cook, a grandmother from Washington, D.C., stood before Congress and recounted a story no one should have to tell. Her words silenced the room, a stark reminder that behind every crime statistic is a family shattered and a city struggling to protect its own. For a moment, the Senate hearing room fell into silence. Lawmakers who are used to debate and division sat still, visibly moved by the testimony. Then Senator Katie Britt of Alabama took the floor, composed, measured, but firm. She didn't just express sympathy. She held policymakers accountable, arguing that lenient criminal justice policies and political posturing have created the conditions for tragedies like this one.
And I appreciate all of you being here today to discuss this important topic. Look, let's be clear, the problem that we're facing today was created by blue cities, was created by plans coming from the other side of the aisle, whether it's cashless bail policies, downgrading classifications of whole categories of crimes, undermining rights and protections afforded by law enforcement officers like we saw in DC in 2022, which Detective Pemberton, I want to talk to you about that, or creating systems to ensure that pretrial releases of even the most violent offenders, like what happened in Memphis, were done. So when we're looking at this, I take issue with what the ranking member had to say. He specifically pointed out Alabama. Truth be told, 8% of our population in Birmingham and Montgomery accounts for 40% of our crime. Both of those cities have been run by Democratic mayors, and in particular in Birmingham for the last 50 years. The mayor has been a Democrat. So we can't pick and choose here and pretend like that is a whole state problem. We're talking about specific areas, and we want to keep these people safe. Here's the deal. Why can't we all agree that, Mrs. Cook, your grandson never deserved to die? Your grandson should still be with us today. And we need to utilize every tool in our toolbox to make sure that that is the reality for another grandmother somewhere in DC or wherever across this country. And you said today that when you told your story that no one heard you. You said you showed up in the mayor's office. You said that you led movements and you tried to gather people to bring attention to this. You asked for answers, and for months and months and months and months, nobody would give you any. Nobody felt like that your grandson was worthy of finding who killed him and shooting him, what you said, 7 times, and holding them accountable. You said today, for the very first time, you feel heard. Can you talk to me about what it means with President Trump placing emphasis on keeping our communities safe, what it means to someone like you who has lost someone, your very firstborn grandson, so near and dear to your heart?
Yes, I can. Hello. Yes, I can, and thank you for that. As I said, I'm a Washingtonian. I'm 69 years old. I grew up in Washington. I know it well. I went to school there, so I know crime in our city. And I know that the laws and the legislators and a lot of things need to be changed to combat it. If we don't send the killer a message, then they're gonna keep killing. If you're only gonna give me a slap on the wrist and you're gonna let me out, then when I got that vacation, 3 hots in the cot for a little while, got some rest, I come back out and I do the same thing. I have not learned. There's no reform in there. And when it comes time to my grandson, and I'm living with that, and he only gets maybe 10 years, he shot my grandson, not 7 times, sweetie, 8. And then he took his body and threw it on the side of Suitland Parkway. And we had to look for my grandson. When we got back bones. It took us 9 months to find his remains, and we had to find his remains. We had to solve the case. We had to do the investigation. DC has had money to be able to do things like this until now. When someone is standing up and talking about it, then we want to raise our heads and say we want to do something. Something could have been done a long time ago.
Thank you. Thank you for raising your voice. I appreciate it. Detective Pemberton, you obviously are well aware of DC's 2022 Comprehensive Policing and Justice Reform Act and the impact it had on the MPD. I am proud to have voted to repeal this law in the past, and I was really proud to recently have co-sponsored Senator Cruz's bill to repeal it. The passage of that law is one of the many things that I think members of the DC City Council have taken to demonstrate their lack of concern for public safety and general unseriousness about the issues in front of us. Look, I'm sure you're going to have an opportunity to talk more about that law, which I look forward to hearing, and if not, I'll follow up with some written questions. But from your experience, when you have elected leaders that undermine law enforcement, that don't seem to be standing shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement, that seem to be not having their back. Can you tell me what that does on morale and what it does for recruitment and retention of law enforcement officers?
Yes, ma'am, and I can. It is absolutely unquantifiably the worst piece of public safety legislation that I have ever seen, and I can tell you exactly what it did. It took us from nearly 4,000 police officers to 3,200 police officers in 5 years. We went from 30,000 arrests per year to 15,000 arrests per year. It created liabilities for police officers for administrative, civil, and criminal penalties, even when they do their job properly, and we have seen that enacted on them. And it also, additionally, it made it so it's impossible to hold criminals accountable, even when they're convicted of violent crimes. It has absolutely destroyed the police department in ways that I certainly don't have time to get into, but it is absolutely the most important piece of legislation to our members and to the nation's capital.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Senator Katie Britt didn't mince words. She argued that the nation's crime crisis is a direct result of policies in Democrat-led cities, from cashless bail to the downgrading of violent offenses and limits placed on law enforcement. Using Birmingham, Alabama, as an example, Britt noted that while Democrats have governed the city for 5 decades, just 8% of its population is responsible for nearly half of all reported crimes. Her message was clear: when political leaders weaken the police, it's families and communities who bear the cost. Mrs. Cook's testimony brought a human face to the violence gripping Washington, D.C. She told lawmakers that city officials ignored her pleas for months. No justice, no answers. If you only give them a slap on the wrist, they'll keep killing, she said. There's no reform in that. Then Detective Peton took the floor, offering a sobering assessment from inside the police force. We've lost 800 officers in 5 years, he testified, noting that arrests have fallen by nearly half. His warning was blunt. Criminals, he said, no longer fear consequences because the system has stopped holding them accountable. For Senator Katie Britt, this issue goes far beyond statistics. It's a question of leadership and responsibility. She argued that when a grandmother has to investigate her own grandson's murder because the city failed to act, that's not justice. That's government failure. Her message was unmistakable. Washington can no longer look the other way. The challenge now: will lawmakers confront the crisis before more innocent families are left searching for answers? If you believe it's time to prioritize the safety of families over criminals, subscribe and turn on notifications. This is Congress Unpacked. No spin, just the facts.